say? Just go for it.
All right. Well, welcome back. This is I left my faith and all I got was this. I lost my faith. I lost my faith and all I got was this podcast. I left my faith. I lost my faith. That's it. I'm going to get it right one of these times. I lost my faith and all I got was this podcast with Micah Herrera. I'm an anti-theist and I don't know. What else am I? That's what I'm here for.
Ex-evangelical.
Ex-evangelical. That's right. Yes, I am. Absolutely. Yes. And then we've got
George, mental health therapist. Yeah. Ex-Mormon.
That's right. And what do we want to say, George?
So we're here processing our experience, living in and leaving faith.
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to learn from other people. Not today. We're just going to be chatting today and really trying to process the toxic side of religion.
Yep. We got the OGs today.
That's right.
That's right.
Explore the alternatives to it. Right.
Right.
So
but that's disclaimer. We need to say that this is not professional advice.
Yes,
absolutely. If you need therapy, please go seek professional help.
Yep.
But we will be talking about topics that do have to do with that field a little bit, kind of that angle, but all kinds of things that deal with religion and deal with religious trauma and toxicity that comes from that. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome to I Lost My Faith
back.
and all I got was this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back. So George, what are we talking about today?
You tell me.
Okay. I think, well, I wanted to talk today because it is a timely moment.
Should we date it?
In history. What is today?
Well, it's January the 24th.
Okay. When we're recording this on January 24th.
Within a week.
So this is the week, within the week of the inauguration of 2024. There's been a lot happening this week, and it's just, listen, politics aside, because that's not what we're here for. We're not here for politics, but a part of how we got to this place in our country has to do with the Christian religion,
right?
And has to do with Christian nationalism and its rise in America over the last 50, 60 years now.
Yes,
yeah,
and we can say this isn't a religious or a political podcast,
sure.
But we did just have a president say that he was saved by God to make America great again during his inauguration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that was kind of inviting us to that conversation. It's definitely not like politics and religion are two separate roads that never have intersected, right? And especially with where we are right now.
In America with Christians, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, this is the road that we're going to kind of be talking about today is how we got to this place, kind of what maybe it's seduction and why people want to be a part of it and why it's gotten all the way up to the highest points of power. I think one of the things that is so interesting about this president is he has surrounded himself with a lot of the charlatans and hucksters of religion, the televangelists. Like I said in a previous podcast, his White House appointed pastor was Paula White for his last administration. She's a TV evangelist.
Why do you call them shuckster? What is the word? Shucksters?
Hucksters. I don't know. I may have said shuckster. I don't know.
No, you probably didn't. Hucksters. Why do you call them that?
Well,
of religion?
Because this specific form is very transparently based on conning people out of their money. So televangelists have notoriously been scrutinized for that fact.
Yeah.
That it's about getting you to donate to them, and it's about manipulating, saying that I heard God tell me that you need to give me money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And God's going to bless you for it. And you can go down the list of the people that have abused that, and almost all of them have. I've worked for a ministry that had people who were good people in it, but the main point of the ministry, and it's one of the prominent ones that's a televangelist ministry, was to make money.
Right.
It was not It was not about
to save souls.
Yeah. It was about how much money. Where are we in? What's our profit at the end of the day?
Right.
How do we make more of that money?
It's a business before it's a religion.
Of course it is.
How rare is that, really?
Well, this is different from maybe your local pastor who's just trying to live off of what people around him are giving. But even those local churches are starting to, in America, and have been for the last probably 20 years, 30 years, been trying to cultivate. They want to be one of the mega pastors who is getting all the money. They want to be one of the big mega churches where they can go live their lifestyle of having $500 shoes on stage every week and driving their whatever vehicles that they have and have their mansions and have their airplane.
Right. And Trump's aligned himself then with like the top of the ones that have done that.
Right. And these are, yes, absolutely. Kenneth Copeland is over there. All these people who Kenneth Copeland's a big one that I name because that's from the area that I'm from. He's one of the prominent televangelists, and his whole message is word of faith, and he comes from a line of, if you're rich, it's because God is blessing you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's this whole idea that goes along with Trump that people that follow him, and especially in the Christian church, there's this inherent idea that he's a good man because he has so much money. Okay. He's being blessed by God. Yeah. So he obviously is a good man.
And he just happens to be saying the dog whistle things that you want to hear.
Well, that too. I mean, we can get into that. Yeah. Obviously, there's tied into like the white supremacist movement, and that's not just saying that for him. That is in the history of the Christian nationalist movement.
Yeah. And really quick before we go farther, just to further define what we want to kind of get into tonight. Yeah.
Well, you asked why I said hucksters. That's why I said hucksters.
I know. I'm bringing us back. I took us off, and I'm bringing them back. It's my responsibility. All right. So, of course, we're probably. I mean, I know I'm not equipped to give like a history of like how we got to where we are necessarily, but we'll muse on it, and we want to talk about that. Right. I know you were saying more of like what's seductive about what's going on. Right. What do you mean by that? Like what?
So.
About that, do we want to get into?
Yeah. So we can get into that. So, I mean, we've come to this place where these people are the ones that are being lifted up, right? Besides the tech oligarchs and stuff like that. But the last presidency was a lot of the Christian nationalists were being held in high regard. And he's done it again. He had these same pastors in all of his inaugural parties and all that stuff, and they're praying over him as the same people, even people that I know were there in that room. Personally, that I have known in the past. I don't have a relationship with them now, but they're there. They were there in that room. I think part of the seduction is the power. Obviously, there's like the proximity to power, but what we want to talk about like today is what's so seductive to people about Christianity today, where it's come to today, and Christianity in America. Because I'm not saying that there is a rise in Christianity right now, because I don't know that the numbers prove that out. The numbers, I think, say the opposite, but there's definitely a cultural Christianity that I see people grabbing onto, even atheists. Richard Dawkins has come out as a cultural Christian, even though he's one of the biggest atheists out there.
Oh, right. Okay. I feel like I've heard of that too. I've had somebody mention like their dad is not in any way religious, but then is talking to them about how they need to bring up Christian children. Right. And it's like, we need more Christian children. It's like,
right. But you don't believe in what this is.
Yeah. And I think for that case, it's Islamophobia is feeding into that.
There's some of that. Sure. For sure. That's definitely a part of it. But that's been strong in this country since 9/11, obviously, and we've heard the stories. Xenophobia has been strong since it started. Since before that, yes, and it's gotten really tied up in politics and power, and There's a lot of right-wing influencers in the manosphere that are being funded by Prager University. Yeah, well, that too. The Prager University is one of those propaganda wings that...
Prager University?
Yeah, do you not know PragerU? No, okay, we're going to have to do a whole thing on PragerU. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But it's a Christian-funded or religious-funded, Christian-funded... basically Christian propaganda machine, right-wing propaganda machine.
Is it a school?
It is online. Now they're doing homeschooling curriculum for Christian kids, and it basically marries Christianity or religious Christianity. I mean, there's also Jewish people involved, I think the guy that heads it up, Prager, is actually a Jewish man, but it's Christian nationalism married with, right-wing politics. So Christianity and right-wing politics married together in a propaganda movement. And I mean, you can watch their videos. The spins are ridiculous and they're silly and stupid. But when you have a kid, and especially an impressionable young kid, which is another thing we need to talk about that in this. But when you have someone that's so impressionable and you start telling them that this is the truth, which is what happened to us as kids, they're going to believe it, because they don't know how to fact check. They don't know how to reason. A lot of adults don't know how to fact check or reason.
They're not taught those in conjunction.
How to think critically or think independently. These things are not taught. These things are not known as much. And they're even discouraged within religion. Because God is the great shepherd. You just need to be a sheep and just follow the herd, right? God will lead you. And you just quiet your mind and let God lead. This submissive giving up of your autonomy energy.
So because even when critical reasoning is, like we've talked about, when it is taught, it's taught to get to the solutions that they're providing you.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
Even if there is you find out what you want, go ahead, find out exactly what we're telling you is the case, right? That's rampant. And it does feel like there's, you said it earlier, I don't know that there is a growth or an expansion of Christianity, but there is one, a nailing their heels into the ground energy.
Definitely
right? That. Really buckling down. I know I've heard recently about BYU, the school is cracking down.
And this is Brigham Young.
Brigham Young University is a Mormon school, right? Cracking down even more on their professors. I know within the last 5 to 6 years, there's a controversy over a talk that one of the leaders gave, talking about LGBT students and then using gun metaphors. That was pretty
interesting.
He said we need to take up our muskets, and it was this whole thing. I was well, you're talking about
what? Take up muskets to do what? Kill LGBT
that's not
people?
To protect your faith, but in the way
I'm trying to understand what angle he's coming from.
His angle was take up your muskets, protect your faith. We can't just let people walk all over us, but
can't let the LGBTQ people walk all over us.
Pretty much, we can't let the world tell us how to think, which is being open and affirming people,
right
is what the world is asking. And we can't let them do that. We need to pull out our muskets. And so but around the same time he said things about we're not going to bend to the world even if it means losing our accreditation. And so BYU, this church, it's a big school, it's in the Big Ten in sports, it's ginormous. They're willing to lose the ability for those degrees to mean anything.
Wow.
To defend whatever this reality is.
Right. And I've seen this too. Yeah. I've seen this in the churches that I come from, where they're buckling down, where they're starting to say, the world can't tell us, even if the world is going this way, we're going to go this way no matter what, which I understand, sticking to what you believe. Yeah. I respect that. Yeah. Definitely. I respect that a lot more than the ones that just blow with the wind. I say, if you're going to believe it, say you believe it and be upfront about what you believe and actually believe it. Because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was going to do. I was going to be upfront and I was going to actually believe what I said. I wasn't going to be this wishy-washy, just kind of, I guess, cultural Christian or whatever, and let this myth if it was a myth, I wasn't going to perpetuate it. It needed to be real to me, and it needed to be real. If I was going to believe it and I was going to go for it, it was going to be real to me. And Jesus was going to be a real God with power, and Yahweh and all of that was going to be a real God and a real belief with power. And I was going to fight this spiritual war on the earth that was actually happening if I believed it. And I wonder how much of this like cultural Christianity is coming into the wash of it's a way to signal maybe your in group, or it's a seductive thing because it's being brandished by basketball players or rappers or something like that, where they're, now they believe in God and they're thanking God for their game wins, and they also think the earth is flat. And so these kids get influenced to be like, well, I'm a flat earther too, and I'm a Christian too, because my hero basketball player is a Christian and a flat earther. Never mind that they're a good basketball player. That doesn't make them an expert in religion or science or the fact that the earth is round. And generally it's understood that people who are in sports are not usually academic minded very much at all, and not inclined that way. But I don't know. I just wonder, because I've wondered, what is the appeal here? And is it people that are saying, I want to actually believe what Christianity is, or I just want to wear it as a badge, as a way of saying, this is what I'm seeing around, and this is my in group, and this is the group that's quote unquote winning culturally, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I see it with Mormons too on TikTok. Like, it's becoming popular, this kind of what's called a trad wife, which is a traditional wife in the kitchen, cooks the meals, raises the children, doesn't work, that sort of thing. Trad wife trend. And Mormon women talking about their glamorous Mormon lives on TikTok and like making it seductive in this way.
Yeah.
When it's basically, we're just so filthy rich, I don't have to work.
Yeah,
which is nice. Right. I mean, like, I'd live that
that's
life.
Great,
like,
yeah. So we've talked about how there's like a social acceptance of religion as, at its worst, a neutral thing.
Yeah,
right? That exists, right?
Yeah.
That traditionally, the assumption that somebody has accepted Christ is viewed almost like just as an automatic good thing.
I guess so.
Right?
Sure.
Or at least like a benign thing.
Right.
And I think that allows and has really allowed like Christianity and kind of the negative or like toxic things we've been kind of unpacking, like the doctrine that people are basically bad and they're not whole, and that this world is not good enough. That seeps into every aspect of our society and always has.
Yes.
The way that we approach welfare, the way that we approach all these different things is after an assumption that this world is impermanent and not as good as the next one, and that people on this earth can be great if they turn to God, but if they don't, and even when they do, they're still imperfect in this life. And so either we can excuse our bad behavior or excuse our inaction. Right. And then I think to talk right now about, like we said, we're a week out.
Right.
Trump's passing all these things about immigration.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
I understand what's going on with the economy. Everyone's frustrated.
Right.
Maybe possibly border corrections that need to be made.
Right.
But it's so easy to remove the humanity from this issue, and I feel like that doctrine underlies that so much that we can so easily take this big old issue about immigration and people, and especially when you're in a part of the country where you're so far removed from it, I just feel like we don't appreciate how much all of us are kind of swimming in this Christian soup being in America.
Well, here's the thing with that Christianity, and that's what I mean, the differences here between the cultural Christianity and the Christianity of someone who's a fundamentalist believer, because we come from fundamentalist belief.
Yes.
Which means that we believe it's true, it's real, this is what's happening, God is coming back, and sinners are going to hell, and the people who accept God are going to heaven.
Right.
that belief in the Bible that I read, when it comes to, like you said, immigration and stuff like that, when it comes to wanting power, when it comes to your enemies and conquering against your enemies, Christianity, which is based on Jesus Christ, not the God of the Old Testament, which is, a genocidal nationalist, all around really asshole guy. The Jesus Christ, who I have a bone to pick with too, but the Jesus Christ of the Bible was turn the other cheek, was sell all your belongings. If you want to be a good person, what Jesus said, if you want to be a good person, you want to follow me, sell everything you've got and follow me. Don't have it. And those who build up treasures here on earth are not building up treasures in heaven and are going to be void of treasure in heaven. When it comes to the immigration, that those who care for the poor, those who care for the hurting, those who care for the struggling, and are the ones that are my followers. And so there's a dissonance, there's a dichotomy here between the cultural badge of Christianity and America, gun-toting Jesus, AK-47, or like AR-15 Jesus, with big muscles, and he's going to go and beat up the human enemies that he's got. That's not at all what is in the Bible that I'm reading. And I think there's a seduction to this Christianity that's a badge right now, and then with it comes all of this toxic stuff. Don't even know what they're believing. Don't even understand what's toxic about what they're believing. And then what it's throwing out that's good that they're believing. I mean, there's just like a lot of confusion and a lot of backwards, upside down nature to what's happening to Christianity in America that I've watched happen since 2016. Like the churches that I was a part of, I've watched them since 2016, and their progression to becoming increasingly more political and increasingly more focused on grabbing power. Yeah. And where in what I was taught and brought up in and what I was reading in that Bible is God telling you to go and conquer and grab power for yourself. It says that no, you're not supposed to be worried about those things. God has those things.
Well, I would argue that it's been thousands of years that Christianity has been yielded this way, though. Okay. That has been yielded by the oppressors.
Since its inception.
Maybe not since its inception, but since, the Roman Empire.
You mean wielded.
What did I say?
You said yielded, but wielded.
Yielded. Yeah, okay. What other wrong word did I use? Chuckster. Gosh. Who put a mic in front of me? Has been wielded by the oppressors.
Yes.
Right? It's packaged, like you said, as an underdog religion.
Yes.
As this, for the meek and everything else. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like since, again, I'm not claiming to know like the history perfectly.
Yeah.
But since the Crusades, all those different things, it's been utilized as a tool to of the oppressors, of the strong. Sure. And then even in America, I know over the last 70 years has been then wielded and taken over by the capitalistic aspects of our...
Yes.
And that's where you get, no longer is it give everything you have and then you get to the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm. It's give me all your money. Your money. Give me all your money, right?
Oh, yes. And so it's these pastors who are around Trump who are telling their congregations and the Christian people that God's going to give you wealth right here on earth.
Yeah.
And when they're doing the exact opposite of what the Bible says.
Right.
And they're actually the ones that the Bible calls evil.
Yes.
But they're doing it in the name of God.
Yeah.
This movie that's going to be coming out soon, and we haven't talked about this, but there's a movie about the Mormons moving into Utah and how they I think it's them moving into Utah where they basically massacred the Indians that were there.
Oh, yeah. The Mountain Meadow Massacre, probably.
Yes.
They're making a movie?
They're making a movie on it.
I got to look this up. Keep talking. I'm listening.
And apparently, it's already gotten flack from the Mormon Church.
Hulu loves their Mormon content.
Do they?
They do all kinds of stuff. I'm here for it.
But yes, it's about that. And I haven't even looked that much into it. But do you know about that massacre? Can you speak on that? Like that is using Christian religion to oppress people.
It might not be about the same thing. So I don't find anything.
Okay, I'll show it to you afterwards. But so that is a thing. I mean, it's very much about that. From what I saw, it's about Mormons moving in and massacring Indians that are, I guess, on their land that they think is theirs.
Yes. Well, the one I'm talking about is about them massacring another like handcart company that was coming through. Because there's a lot of like paranoia and fervor around the army coming because they were practicing polygamy. And Brigham Young at the time, the prophet, there's no proof that he gave the actual order for it to happen, but he built up a culture of paranoia, and he was preaching something called the blood atonement at the time, which is that by killing somebody, you have their sin, you help them get their sins forgiven because the act of murdering them, it gives them access to the atonement, which led to a murder in the 80s. Speaking of Hulu content, check out, it's called Under the Banner of Heaven. It's all about
Under the Banner of Heaven. And Under the Banner of Heaven and Under the Banner of Christianity, slavery has been justified. You
can justify all kinds of things.
You can justify murder. You can justify genocide. You can justify oppressing people. All these things. There's that toxic part of Christianity, and it's used, the Crusades. Crusades was a whole thing. I mean, let's talk about the sins of the Catholic Church, because it's got a long arm. It's one of the older versions of Christianity that has a lot of sins. This newer American evangelicalism has a ton of sins that it commits in other countries, where it goes and it teaches people to. Teaches these doctrines of hate against LGBTQ people, against other tribes that don't believe in God.
So it erases culture.
It erases culture. It gets them to murder, kill, destroy each other
in the name of God.
And then they'll put a spigot with some water there for them too. But I guess there's that. Get them some clean water. That's good. You're getting them clean water, but also telling them to kill each other is not a good idea.
Right.
And telling them that, it's righteous to oppress people, to hate people, to be bigoted.
I know, because those countries that are very anti-LGBT, their evangelicals are like feeding into those countries.
It's very strong, strong. One of the things in this Christian nationalist movement book that I'm reading right now, just so I can understand the history more thoroughly, and how it's come about, because it was before I was born when it started. But there are people who are protesting in Africa. They've got signs for anti-abortion, but they're all in English. I mean, where that's coming from. These people don't speak English. They're holding English, it's coming from American pastors. And it's been a big thing with American evangelical pastors to go to these countries, say that we're going to help feed the poor and we're going to help these people, when really what they're doing is just basically proselytizing people and trying to make more Christians with people who are begging for an answer.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get to, is like the seduction is like when you are in a spot where, and I think it happens a lot, where people are desperate for answers. That's when you're at your most vulnerable for someone to come in and say, I have all the answers. Let me show you I've got the silver bullet that's going to make your life all better, which is what's happening right now in our presidency.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate con man. And he surrounds himself with con men. These pastors who are con men, these rich people that are billionaires that are con men, these politicians that are con men, and it's whoever can be the greatest con man up to the pinnacle of this president. That's what he's made his whole life doing, is being a con man. You don't have to go far. That's not an opinion on that. You can just look into his actual life and see what he has done and what he does. There's nothing righteous about him, but yet the people who call themselves righteous are following him. And I think, and because there's a seductive thing to what Christianity does, and what people do when people are vulnerable, say, I got all the answers, just follow me.
Well, I think he's tapped into the language. He's tapped into the paranoias, the fears carried by that community and the communication style, right? And I think
what have pastors done for centuries?
Right. And we were talking before, I think one of if we could start breaking down, like what are the seductive things that are happening right now that he's tapping into, because I don't think it's completely him bringing it. I think it's a mix.
It's a mix of he is fully tapped into a waterfall of that's already been going,
and then just making it worse.
He's just taking advantage
a lot of time.
Of it.
But I think one definitely is like the main character energy that we were talking about that he provides, and that Christianity provides is that saying that you are the most important thing. This is all surrounding you, and there's a cabal coming after you.
Yes.
That's a huge part of it.
So there's an inherent narcissism that's in Christianity, right? This persecution complex that it teaches you to have, that the world out there, the devil's against me. The biggest villain in the zeitgeist, the devil, is attacking me. I'm so important to God and God's kingdom that the devil has his eyes on me. The devil, the one that tried to one-up God, is focused on me. There is an inherent narcissism that's in Christianity. There is this thing that you're the chosen people, that you're chosen by God, that God has made,
I'd say like there's a narcissism in the conceptualization of it. I'm not sure that I'd say like everyone engages at it from because I think a lot of people do end up engaging in it from just like, I want to be seen.
But I'm talking about a systemic narcissism though. It's a systemic narcissism. It's this idea that that comes from the Bible, that you're the chosen people, that you're the ones God is blessing, that God has his eyes on you, that God listens to everything you say and all the prayers that you have and watches every second that you live. You have a direct connection with the God of the universe. That's an inherent systemic narcissism that's happening there. The idea that my thoughts are important to the God of the univerce.
Yeah. I want to... This might.
Is this bad of me? I mean, you can check me on what I'm saying.
This may just be. This is what I'm going to get into.
Okay.
This may just be coming down to semantics of is it. And I'm not trying to like defend people, but like just like getting into the psyches of individual people and like
who
the
believe
systemic.
In this? Yes,
I think. Especially where narcissism is in the culture, it is very harsh, like word idea, right?
Sure.
So I think a lot of people may experience it more of just like egocentric or like egocentrism, where they place themselves at the center of the universe. Yeah, but I don't know if like we can exactly parse out the difference between those. But
I'm critiquing the religion here. Yeah. I'm not trying to say that people are the ones that are. I'm saying that the religion is the one enhancing this.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm playing just saying, to our worst natures, right? Because we all have a tendency towards narcissism. We're all the main character of our lives. Every single person. And I don't mean it so harshly as narcissism has become, and especially in Christianity, the sin of narcissism, right? We're all focused on ourselves in a certain way. We all have an ego. That's the part of being a human, is having an ego. Christianity says that's a sin, but then also, again, does this inversion where it also places you at the center of the story and enhances your ego, but tells you shouldn't have one. So it's this, of course, this brain dissonance that happens, and this upside down twisted logic that in Christianity that's even meant to be confusing. But so I'm not trying to sit here and say that everyone who believes in Christianity is narcissistic. There are so many people who give so much of themselves.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to say that's what you're saying. I was just more musing on the way that people engage with that. I wasn't trying to call you on that.
Well, check me on what I'm saying too. No. I don't want to be. I know I'm the harsh one in this podcast. I'm the one that's going to say the volatile things.
Yeah, because I think. Just like when I hear like we're framing it as a narcissism, it puts an intention behind it. Okay. Like that where I don't know. I mean, once again, I don't know that we need to like parse it out this much, but when people connect with what is like happening with Trump, I don't know that it's from a being the main character and just like that feeling good rather than and like that egocentric, like it's like an egocentric solve to them. Again, maybe that's maybe not a delineation we need to make, but I think that's what attracts a lot of people. It's not that they're narcissists and they want that to get fed, right? But that they're in, like we've talked about, they're in a lonely world and they want to be seen, and that's like turned up to 11. You're seen and people are after you and we agree with you, right?
Sure, that's what but it's playing to the worst parts of our egocentrism, right? It's not it's coming from a place we're a part of a community, that you're seen as a human being, because everybody wants to be seen. All politicians are going to try and make you feel seen. He's not the first one to do that.
No.
But to play to your worst parts, that you're in the middle of this story, a battle between good and evil, and when they attack me, they attack you. This assassination attempt was against you too. That plays to our egocentric, narcissistic tendencies. I think that's very strong, and I think that there's this what we've been trying to get to, all of this prelude and preamble.
We're through the intro now.
We're in the preamble. Out of the preamble. I think that there is in society, there is a lot of people who are disaffected right now because there's a lot going on. And a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are struggling. And the worldwide economy is struggling since COVID. That was not one country's thing and not one country's ability to fix. Every country was struggling. Not that we need to talk about economics and politics, but we're doing better than all the other ones that went through COVID because of this last presidency that happened. We're ahead. We're doing better than the other ones, but we still have people who are disaffected. So there's this seduction to who's got the quick answer, who has the big answer right now. I need the big answer right now. Who's going to make everything better? And the reality is there's not one answer. There's not one way to make it better. Life is hard and it's a struggle, and there's failure and there's struggle, and there's good things too. But when you are down, when you are in the pit, and someone comes along and tries to sell you the answer to everything, which is what Christianity does. What I'm trying to say is that's highly seductive, and that's when you need to have the red flags go boop, 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 boop. And you need to think, what are they trying to sell me, and why? Why are they trying to sell it to me here? Your training to be a missionary was to target people who were desperate for an answer, was to target people who were hurting and find them and say, we've got the answers. Here, let us sell you this thing, right? And come into the fold. And I think that's what's personally, I think that's what is seducing, whether it's a lot of men, if we're talking about certain demographics, men online, men who feel that they're disaffected, they feel like they don't have a future, they feel like they're not able to do the traditional things that men are supposed to be able to do, quote unquote, with our gender roles in society of make money, gain power, create safety for a family. And because they're so disaffected by being, for all these reasons, I'm trying not to get into the politics of it too much, but because they're so disaffected and unable to do these things, they fall for the seduction of, here's an answer, of someone who promises to fix everything, which is a Jesus promise, right? It's a Christian Bible promise. It's a wish-thinking promise. It's one without any power behind it, but they're going to have to find out the hard way that that's the truth. And Christianity is happy to take advantage of this, happy to cheer on the wins culturally. It has had this happen in the past where it's had waves of evangelicalism and waves of revival is what they call it. But it's always been heading towards what the actual truth is, that it doesn't have power. It doesn't help people in the way that it says it will. And it gives you a purpose that is sinister and is tells you to forget about this life, when at its core, it tells you to forget about this life, give up this life so that you can have a better afterlife. Something that is promised that they can never deliver on. This thing that nobody's ever seen or proven to be true, or we have any proof to be true, and that's just me hedging my language. It's just not true. But to promise that's like me coming up to you and saying, give me all your money, give me, and as a matter of fact, be my slave for the rest of your life, and I will give you eternal life. Just me coming up to you saying that. Would you believe me? No. But so you need to have the red flags going off when that happens, first of all, I think. But I do think that is a part of the seduction there, is this, okay, you're going to give me all the answers. You're going to give me the blessings. And then I also get a purpose that comes along with it. There's a seduction of me giving you a purpose, right? This is something that the army does, right? They say, you don't have a purpose, you don't have a direction in life, come here, we'll give you a purpose. Now, the army's very good at messaging and propaganda, and I know propaganda is seen as negative. I think some of the ways the army advertises itself is negative, but I
went to an army graduate or a Marine graduation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they just had propaganda playing while we sat in the bleachers. And
yeah.
I felt
they're very good at it.
Yeah.
It's they're as good as religion at the propaganda. And I'm not saying that joining an army and stuff like that is bad. A lot of people see a lot of nobility in that. But what happened in the wars of the last 50, 60 years are people being very disaffected by and not want to be in the army and stuff because they were given a promise, a purpose, and basically they just went and fought a rich man's war for resources and died for oil, died for resources, died for land, whatever it is. And it wasn't about protecting our country, like they say. This is the same type of bait and switch that religion tries to give you as well. This is, or any cult is going to try and give you a negative cult, a cult that's bad for you is going to try and give you as this bait and switch. And so this is what I'm personally trying to wrap my head around all the reasons that these things are so seductive to people. It was seductive to me growing up. I've already talked about this, the importance that it made me feel like I was going to have in the world, and in for God, and what I was going to do for God, and what kind of importance I was going to have in God's kingdom, and this great beyond that's beyond this life, and the cost is the last thing that I want to bring up, because there's this seduction of purpose, the seduction of answers, and then but it also comes at a cost. And I think when it comes to cults and when it comes to belief in religions and, even this like cultural Christianity thing that just putting on the badge, it still comes at a cost. And I would say it'd be smart to weigh those costs before just jumping into something like that. Feel free to interrupt or jump in on me. I feel like I'm just rolling with it. But,
yeah, you go.
But I weigh that cost, because Christianity does tell you, and in the Bible, whether you have read it or not, that it requires your whole life. It requires you to surrender your whole life. It requires you to abdicate your own personal power. Mm-hmm. You abdicate your own personal autonomy. That is in the contract. So if you want to sign that contract, fine, but at least understand what you're signing. And then also have some gall to actually believe and understand what you're believing or what you're saying you're believing. And I think I think I see a lot of people that are just kind of, they're like, oh, my hero is a Christian, so I'm just going to be a Christian, or I'm just going to follow, or my dad is a Christian, my mom's a Christian, or it seems like the thing to do right now, or these people on TikTok seem like they're really happy or something like that. Behind it is a big contract. And I would say, weigh that contract. I would say a person who wants to live a thoughtful and purposeful life, or a life that is their own, that they can say, I made the decisions in my life and I chose what I thought to be right and good. You need to read that contract. I don't understand all the reasons that people are choosing what they're choosing, or why the culture has become what it has become. I think a lot of people are just reeling right now, struggling, and need a strong answer, and want someone stronger than them to say it's going to be okay, like religion promises to do, like Daddy God promises to do. It's going to be okay. I've got the reins. It's a scary world out there. You don't have to worry. That idea is very seductive. It's a very nice idea to have. But the thing is, we're the ones that have to make this world better if it's bad. Not Daddy God, not a strongman leader, authoritarian leader who's going to take away people's. We have to do it as people. We have to stand up for ourselves in our own lives and make decisions, not give up our power to. I feel like I'm preaching now. I'm preaching my own philosophy, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I mean, that's not what this podcast is for. But isn't that the natural place to go? That if you want to be a human being with a life that is your own, you have to take up your own power, and you have to stand and answer for yourself, and not give your power over to someone else and to something else, but stand up for what you believe in, stand up for what you believe to be right, and make decisions that are thoughtful and what you believe to be good. I don't know. I mean, I not what people tell you is good, not what someone else tells you is the answer, but what you believe to be so. I don't know. I know that people that think that are in religion believe that they're doing those things. But part of this podcast is trying to get people to realize you're being fed a lot of things that you believe. Are they actually what you believe when it comes down to it? Have you looked into the details and figured out if that's actually what you believe? I think that's one of my goals here with this podcast. Asking people to take a look at it. Because when I did, I realized there was a lot more there than what I was being told was there. Help me, George. I've got myself down a hole, and I feel like I don't know how to get myself out here. Like what I'm trying to say. Could you help me? Do you have any thoughts on that? On
one part? You did kind of go for a little bit.
I went for a little bit. I'm sorry. You didn't stop me. Well, okay. Like, what are your thoughts on? Okay. You know a lot of people that are in the religion, in the Mormon religion. I know people that are in the Christian fundamentalist religion. Okay. Is there anything that you can say to why people have been so ready to give in to authoritarian ideals? I mean, I can talk on that. Give in to... Well, what do you want me to talk? Go ahead.
So what makes people so quick to give into authoritarian ideals?
I guess. I mean, that's one of the things that's happening right now, right? That's one of the things that's happening.
I think it goes back to like just what's been ingrained in our culture and what has been rewarded, what has been, obviously like in our upbringings, like being submissive to other people's ideas is what we were taught and trained to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Thank you.
that has gone away. I think that that's just innate in the way that children have been raised. And I do think that like shows up. And then like all the different factors you've talked about of people being disaffected, people being disconnected. The internet has come around in the last 20 years. We had COVID. We had all these things that have, I think, damaged our connection with each other.
Yeah.
And put us more firmly into self-confirming bias with algorithms, with all those things.
Sure.
We can't get into every reason.
No.
Right,
I mean,
of course.
But this is what we're talking about today.
For sure.
This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, we can't get into all of it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big piece. And I think like even connecting back to some of the conversations we've had about like nihilism and those things, like having a story, having a defined enemy to put your anxiety and your existential angst onto is peaceful in a weird paradoxical way, right? Because you live in this heightened anxiety that the world's about to end, that your elections are about to be stolen, your borders are about to fall. You live in that world, but those are way more defined than I don't know what the hell I'm doing on this rock. I don't know why I'm a conscious being. And of course, like I wouldn't say that I am fully connected with that all the time, like that anxiety, that fear necessarily, right?
Well, you have everyday life that you got to live. You're not at all moments going, what am I doing flying on this rock at 100,000 miles an hour?
Right. And religion does teach you to live. I was going to say religion teaches you to live mindlessly. What I was going to say.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I think when I hear pastors give apologetics and give placating answers, it's all about quieting the mind from having this existential angst that it has, and it's about it's like self-soothing, or like soothing a child or a baby, going, it's okay, you don't have to worry about that, it's going to be all right, even if there's all this craziness going on out in the world and all this danger or all this stuff that you're in. It's treating adults and children like they need to be placated, like they're sheep being shepherded. That's the imagery that the Bible gives you. Is You are a sheep. You are dumb. You are not able to make your own decisions. You need a shepherd to tell you what to do and to lead you to water so that you can drink it. This is the ideals of Christianity, right? This is the metaphors that it's giving, is that you are not able to have your own autonomy. Let us just placate you and quiet your mind that is asking these questions, legitimate questions, and giving you an easy answer that may not be true, but it's a nice answer. It's a wish thinking answer. It's a Disney answer, right? It's a magical fantasy answer. And of course, I want the magical fantasy to be real. Man, that would be so much fun. That would be so great. But the idea that there's some great arc story and you're one of the main characters in it is just not the way the universe is set up.
Right.
It's just not that.
There's not a cabal. There's not an organization.
Right.
Right. Of course, there are organized bad people.
Of course. But they're out in the open. They're telling us what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me with conspiracies and conspiracy theories. I'm like, y'all see what they're doing out in the open, right? You don't even have to look under the rug. There are people doing evil things out in the open every day.
Yeah.
And they're telling you what they're doing.
Right.
I don't know. I think one of the toxic things about Christianity and religion and it being a popular thing to believe in a God and this purpose and stuff is it's denial of reality. It's denial of and it's pushing away of complicated answers. It's this black and white thinking. There's no room for gray. There's no room for it's complicated.
Yeah.
And it's good and bad. It's the whole spectrum. And instead is giving you a fantasy answer. And that to me is very toxic. That to me is not helpful if you want to live a good life. And I think that's the thing is people are looking for a way, how do I live a good life? How do I live well? If I'm going to be living, I think most of our goals are to live well. We'll all define them differently, but I don't know why I'm here, why I exist, and why I can think, and why I can see myself and examine the world around me and reason. And I just got to make the best of it. How do I make the best of it? And Christianity says, well, you can actually make the greatest life ever, the greatest life you can live through us, right? But why is that bad? Why is that toxic? Well, these reasons that we've talked about, right? And I would say, and I think there's a lot of people looking for that, and they go to the ones who are promising them the golden bullet, the easy way.
Right. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, that it does take like defining for yourself what is important, what is valuable to you. And I think,
well, I need help. How do I? Where can I go from here?
Well, going back like to the underlying impact that these doctrines and ideas have is that you're trained to teach that you don't have that ability, right? We have been trained to think that we do not have it within us to choose what is right.
You can't trust yourself. You can't trust your own mind. Yes.
Decide what our values are. And that's bullshit. That's number one. We have to unlearn that. That's number one. We need to unlearn
George, come on.
the fact that we don't have it. So I'm going to bring Stoicism into this conversation.
Okay, bring Stoicism into this conversation.
Stoicism is...
We're taking a turn here.
Yeah, so I'm just going to throw it into this conversation and hopefully it will make sense.
Yes.
So Stoicism is in the culture. Stoicism is
it has become popular recently.
It's becoming popular in...
Yes. I remember studying it a little before it became popular. I mean, I was cool like that.
Stoicism hipster.
I just want to say...
Have you read Meditations?
Meditations is on my list. I never got to it.
It's on my nightstand right now, so I also have not read it.
Go ahead.
So
Meditations is Marcus Aurelius, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the book.
So Stoicism has entered philosophy. The culture. It's in the philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's becoming popular as an approach. It's becoming popular amongst men. I think as a philosophy.
Yeah,
but I think the way it's becoming popular, and I don't have like research to back this up or anything. This is mostly observational.
Yep.
Is another like Christian hijacking
twist.
of it that's all about denying your emotions, right? Stoicism meaning you lack emotions, you don't have emotions, you're stoic. Right. That's the same thing. That's denying who you are, that's denying what you're feeling, that's denying what's going on. That's not what Stoicism is.
Right.
Stoicism is learning skills in order to engage emotionally or gain emotional intelligence in order to engage with your emotions in a way that you then make rational decisions based off of them.
Yes.
So you connect with them. You work with them, you live in them, you process them, and you just build strength to make better decisions.
Right.
That's still within you. That's you having an ability, not denying the fact that you can do that. And I think we're taught, or denying the fact that you have that ability, that you can catch your emotions, feel them, and then move forward effectively. Sometimes you need help with that. That's what I do a lot in therapy, is help people take a look at all the things that aren't working. We've already talked about like the values card sort. It's one of my favorite activities to do. I encourage people to do it on their own.
Remind us of that one again. Can you remind us of what that is again? That exercise?
It's based on acceptance commitment therapy, which is grown out of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. Yes. Which we don't have to go into all the definitions.
Which one more thing, which the people who developed the guys that developed cognitive behavioral therapy drew on Stoicism. So it's very much based in the same thing.
Okay.
And acceptance commitment therapy is cognitive therapy, but it brings in mindfulness and a very big focus on values, connecting with your personally identified values, the things that when they're present in your life, you get fulfillment. And so that could be close with your family, being an honest person, having an adventurous life, having a sexually active life. The things that are like
for me, it's creating every day.
Right.
Being able to sing. And having friends that I care for and surround myself with, those things keep me alive.
Yeah.
So I did this for myself in a way. I identified those things, started making sure those things were in my everyday life. For other things too.
Yeah.
But those are like some of the top 3.
Yeah.
And it works. I just want to say it works.
Yeah, and
it absolutely works. It's amazing.
Itself is like a big old like deck of options, and you sort them between very important, and not important.
Yeah.
And even the act of doing that allows you to check in with yourself of like, why is this not coming up as important to me right now? Or this is something I wouldn't think is very important to me. And then, of course, like I said, I do this in sessions with clients, and I find it's very helpful to help give yourself a self-identified definition of what is important and what you want to bring into your life. And I don't think these religions allow space for that.
How powerful is that?
Right?
Well,
and I think that's what's missing with a lot of the people we're talking about, or what's going on.
Well, to wrap this up, that's what I was going to say, is if you're in a hole, where do you go from here? How do you help yourself? ACT is one of the ways. And it's very powerful, and it's based on Stoicism, or comes from a root of Stoicism.
They're influenced,
And so this is one way. It's not the way, but it's one way, and it's a powerful way. I have had that effective in my life. I didn't know it was called ACT, but I just had to stumble upon it after years of deep depression and stumbling around in the dark, trying to figure it out. Finally stumbled on the idea of doing this, and it is very powerful. It's very amazing. But Marlene Winnell, she talks about that the opposite of Stoicism is what Christianity tells you to do, to ignore your feelings, to never address them. If you're feeling...
To only have 3 acceptable ones.
Right. If you're feeling an emotion that is bad, that Christianity calls bad or calls wrong or shames, you're just supposed to ignore it and go pray, right? Or like, you're not supposed to feel it and understand it. You're supposed to go to God and put it in a corner, right? And not address it.
It's the doubt your doubts that I mentioned before, right? A lot of times your doubts are coming from emotions, right? You're feeling something, so you're taught to doubt those, to disconnect yourself from those rather than follow them. And you don't always have to listen to them. So sometimes you feel things and it's not an accurate thing. You have to take a step back, but you should never completely disregard or shove down your emotions, because that comes out.
It's going to become a monster that explodes out. We've kind of talked about that Christianity has that happen in our last few episodes, but I just want to point out the dichotomy there, where religion can be very toxic, and where there are just better ways already that we know of. Do we know all the better ways as humans? No, but we need some help getting there too. So ACT is one. I was going to point some things of how we can get better and ask you some questions. Is that okay?
Sure, I'll try my best.
Okay, so I want to put this situation, because I feel like a lot of people are in this situation where they're in their lives, they don't have a direction. They don't know where to go with their lives. They don't feel they have a purpose. Christianity's offering a purpose. We've already talked about what it's offering. Religion, or maybe being a political pawn, or maybe being a pawn for a political pawn that would be engulfed in like whether it's armed forces or being whatever or religious. It's all kind of packaged into this one thing right now. But if I don't want to go down that route, if I feel like, okay, I've been convinced that this is probably pretty toxic and what they're selling is not what's actually there, where do I go? What do I do, George? Like, how do I find purpose for my own life? Like, is that something that you help people with? I mean, do you help people in that situation? What's the deal there? How do I move on? How do I do something?
I mean, I don't know that I'll be able to answer how to find purpose necessarily.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just putting in a big blanket. But what are some ways that I can take a step forward? Like, how can I make my life mean something to me? I feel like it doesn't mean anything to me. I feel like I'm just kind of wandering around in this void, maybe of nihilism, or maybe I don't have my faith anymore. Like, you mentioned ACT, which is an amazing one. That's an amazing way to start, I think. Are there any other methods that you might know of that can help us, or where you would go from there? I know I'm putting a lot on you.
No, I mean, I think just in broad terms, and this goes, it's just like my perspective on therapy and what I hope it is.
Help me with your philosophy.
Like the statement I hesitated earlier of the idea that religion helps you move through the world mindlessly. And I think that has consequences.
Yes.
And eventually we tune into them.
Yes.
And we have a choice then.
Yes.
If we are going to continue in that in like a discontented space, or that we want to turn and live a more mindful life, right? A more intentional life. And I think that that's what I hope to do with my therapy when people are coming in like with similar feelings of depression or just listlessness, is of
being
course
mindful.
Like not being mindful and intentional, right?
And how do I do that? Can you give me an example of what being intentional might be? Do you have one maybe in your mind that you can come up with?
I mean, that's a broad or a vague question, so I'm having a hard time having like a specific answer, I think.
But what do you mean by being intentional?
By looking at your life.
Okay.
And with the support of another person, if that's what you need at that time, and making decisions that aren't just putting the next foot in front of the other because that's just what you have to do.
Right.
But taking stock of where you're at, where you've been, how those things are affecting you, and then making decisions based off of that. It's not it's not always like in text or oh my God. Becoming too overly analytical. That's not always the solution.
Okay, yeah.
But it is like, I don't want to just like trash other, other like generations before. But I think there was a propensity that you just get through life. You do the next thing next. You have a kid, you get home from the war,
a lot of people
you get
feel
married,
this way,
you have a kid, you get your job, you get your pension, you're retired, you go to your kids' baptisms, you die. Like, And I think that did not work.
No. And there's so many people that want to live. They want to live mindfully and intentionally.
Yeah.
And they can't go through life anymore just going through life and just letting it happen to you, and whatever just happens. Right. I know a lot of people, I felt that way too about previous generations around me, whether it's been family or people that I've seen. I know a lot of people feel that way. I think that was part of culture. And just not having the tools to be mindful, even. And we've come a long way. But now we're to this place where people are being mindful and they're going, oh no, now what do I do? I realize that I have to decide my own purpose and my own path in life, but I have no idea how to do it. It's much easier just to not think about it.
Right. Yeah.
Possibly, I think a lot of people, because I've needed help in these situations to just even reason out what is going on in my own life.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people, I think this is a part of therapy, is like therapy can help you get help understanding, taking a look at your life, a rational look of what's happening. Because a lot of people have this very fantastical view of what's happening with their life, or this view that may not be based in reality, that's just in their head about what their life looks like and what is going on. But then when they get help to actually look at the things that are happening in their life, the data, then it's a different picture, right? And when you can look at the actual data, when you can look at what's actually happening reasonably and rationally, you can make a better decision about what to do with your life, right?
And it's so individualized too.
Sure,
it's so
absolutely.
Individually dependent.
Every person is very different, yes.
Right, and I think that's to defend myself not having a better example. I think that's where I'm coming from too, is that it is so dependent, and it should be dependent on individual.
Absolutely.
I do not believe in one size fits all. That was one of my problems with staying in the church that I was raised in, right? Is I just could not buy that a guy like 200 years ago figured it all out and we all had to live this way. Like I have the same problem with even the guy that proposed CBT or ACT. Like I think they're good things to draw upon.
They're tools.
But we
they're
shouldn't
helpful.
Just accept it full sale because we're all such individual people.
Absolutely.
And so there are different things to like be more present, and those things are very important. But I think ultimately it just takes bravery a bit to turn toward yourself, honor yourself, and find yourself an important piece, and trust yourself to give yourself what you need.
There you go. Ooh, come on, George. Ow! Oh, that was good.
Right? But really, that's and like
that's what I needed. Of course, I've come that's what I needed.
A therapist, and that's like my approach. What I want to help people do and connect with, and
be able to trust themselves.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say you don't need anybody, because that's not true. You need community. You need friends. You need mentors. You need therapists, but you do have it. Like we all have. And this goes back to just the way I see the world. Like I do vehemently disagree with the idea that people are born fallen and broken. Just vehemently.
Of course.
Cannot agree with anything less. I truly believe in the ability. Some people need varying levels of support, different levels of learning, whatever it is. But I will always believe in each individual's innate ability to care for themselves and to be drawn toward, I guess, I don't know what word I'd use. I was going to say like good.
But yeah, I know you were going to go for that word. I mean, I think we could put a blanket on 99% of people want to be good, want to live a good life. You even see it in people who do bad things. I remember a writer that I really love and respect said the odious character is always self-justifying. The odious character meaning the evil one, the villain,
right,
is always self-justifying.
Yeah.
They want to believe that what they're doing is right and good. That's what makes a good villain. Yeah. Is they believe they're right in their revenge or their vengeance or their anger or their I would say that most of us want to be good or live a good life, right? And because that's just beneficial on all levels, right? Living a bad life, quote unquote, comes with pain, suffering, and self-destruction. At least the idea of it, right? That's what I would call a bad life. And we don't want that. We want to do well. We want to have happiness and joy and good things and in our lives. So yeah. And I think most people want that. I think most anyone you talk to is going to want that. We might prioritize things differently, but ultimately, I define a good life very maybe different than other people, but still, I want to live a good life. Well, that's really good. Thank you, George. That's what I was hoping for, was some
hope.
Some hope. It's hard because sometimes it can feel like the culture or conversation is either hopeless or delusion.
Yeah.
Either this wish thinking Disney fantasy religion or nihilism, everything's going down and just being destroyed.
Yeah, and it's somewhere in the middle.
Of course, it's gray. Mm-hmm. It's gray. And if we want it to be better, then we've got to make it better, and not some like we need to install some power up here to make it better. We need to, in our own lives, in our own communities, in our own areas, make our own lives better and make the people around us lives better.
It's like those, like the things we've been talking about of like the aspects of religion that perpetuate it, mm-hmm. that lead to the self-denial.
Yeah.
They take up space where more of that service could fill.
Yeah.
Right. And so those, because I don't deny either that like the church I grew up in, like we would do service, like those things mm-hmm. would happen. But I think I've talked on my mission, right, where mm-hmm. I was tuning into the fact I was like, these people don't need Jesus as much as they need me to help them.
Just be a community person
with what's happening neighbor. Right now.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, I think that it just gets in the way of that. And that's mm-hmm. what comes down to, I think, mm-hmm. was another big part of our conversation is like, mm-hmm. Let's keep the good.
Yeah.
Let's keep the good.
Yeah.
Let's keep the
good ideals.
What parts of this can we leave behind?
Yeah. Can we get out of the way and actually make it more effective?
It's hard to leave them behind when people are manipulating them to continue to get power.
Yes.
And that's what's happening.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, come on, George. Bring it all together. Bring it all together.
Period. I think we should just end there. That was it.
Woo! George, usually, wow, yeah, you had a grasp on what was being said today. I was just floating off into the ether of musing about the world. I needed help today. It's hard. It's a struggle to understand what's going on in the world.
No, I mean, none of this. It's not like we made total sense because none of this makes total sense.
None of it does, right? Yeah.
We're trying to understand
I think anybody who's listening to this or anybody out there in the world would say 2024 makes zero sense on every single level.
We're in 2025.
I mean, 2025 makes zero sense. We just got to 2025. I know. But you're right.
You're still in the grace period, for sure.
2025 makes zero sense.
Yeah.
2024 made zero sense. The world that we're living in right now feels topsy-turvy to everybody.
Yeah.
The Christians think it's topsy-turvy. The atheists think it's topsy-turvy.
Topsy-turvy, and that's what we can all agree on.
I guess we can all agree on that. Okay, well, those were great solutions. Thank you, George. That was wonderful. We're going to keep talking about how we can do better.
You're finishing that Christian Nationalist book. Mm-hmm. I've got the Cult of Trump coming. So we'll definitely be talking more about this because I think it is just so interesting. It just, again, like what is drawing people to this and the culture and the impact it has on the culture, the impact that it's going to have on history with the erasure of the 2020 election, all that stuff. There's and just where we're at with information. Yeah. So we'll be talking about
it's a wild time. It's a wild time to be alive. And we are going to talk more contemporary and continue to talk about ways that we can do better than fundamentalist religion from the Bronze Age. All right, George. That was great. That's good. Thanks. So, this was I Lost My Faith, and all I got was this podcast. We will see you next time. It's George, Evandrius, Amadeus, Winifred.
I got Evandrius.
Conrad, Beaufried, Alexander.
Let's see, Micah, bookcase, sticker. Lamp, small glass, Herrera,
Bob Ross painting,
Herrera.
All right, I love it. All right, we'll see you next time. All right.